But the other point of outrage in Washington today was the arraignment of Trump's former FBI chief turned enemy, James Comey. At Trump's command, Comey has been indicted on charges related to authorizing a leak of classified information, even though investigators found insufficient evidence that he leaked classified information. And the prosecution's lead witness says he never leaked classified information. Other than that, though, lock him up.
Trying to tell the public we're in a massive misinformation campaign. The president himself tweeting out AI videos of fake news reports on healthcare. This is really dangerous and it's really hard. And I cannot express to you the concern and the absolute bafflement and fear of our European allies asking me, is this stuff really going on?
The funny thing about power is how loudly it speaks when it's run out of anything meaningful to say. Trump calls it leadership. Kimmel calls it performance art with a teleprompter that never learned punctuation. Walz watches the whole thing like a teacher watching a student proudly hand in a blank sheet and call it innovation. Somewhere between policy and improv, America ended up with a reality show president who still believes every scandal is just another episode's cliffhanger.
Trump wants that Nobel Prize so bad. I've seen a lot of Oscar and Emmy campaigns, but no one has ever vied for an award more vigorously than our Dalai Lama.
Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't do anything. They gave it to Obama for doing absolutely nothing.
He got the Nobel Prize for doing nothing.
They should give me the Nobel Prize.
Everyone says that I should get the...
And I am going to challenge him. I mean, my God, we've got the White House threatening investigations in jail time because an escalator stopped. Walk up the damn stairs. This stuff happens. This is life. Do not normalize this.
Kimmel begins where Trump's story always does, with a declaration of greatness so bold it practically dares gravity to disagree. The economy is booming. The borders are secure. The world is jealous. And if the facts don't fit the slogan, well, that's a facts problem, not a slogan problem. Walz shakes his head. He's seen confidence before, just not the kind that can stand through a hurricane of evidence. For a man who boasts of building empires, Trump's most impressive construction might be the scaffolding that keeps his own narrative standing.
The president using the Department of Justice to prosecute people he doesn't like is very concerning, especially if, personally speaking, you are one of the people he doesn't like. No one makes enemies like Donald Trump. He even has a problem with the QAnon shaman now. Remember the guy in the horns who stormed the Capitol? Well, he's doing great, first of all, but he's suing his beloved president.
Every week delivers a new crisis, and every crisis gets the same remedy: a press conference and a promise that no one else could possibly handle it better. Kimmel wonders if the real national infrastructure project is the one constantly patching holes in the president's story. He talks about rebuilding roads, but spends far more time rebuilding timelines. Walz can't decide whether it's audacity or optimism watching a man rename chaos as efficiency and proudly call it modernization.
The Nobel Prize. I was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
I got the Nobel Peace Prize nomination.
I got nominated for the Nobel Prize. Where's my Nobel Peace Prize they don't talk about?
A Peace Prize Nobel nomination, and they didn't cover it. And I don't care, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not politicking for it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of unfairness in this world.
Yeah, well, you know what? No one has suffered more unfairness.
There's an art to taking credit. Trump turned it into a lifestyle brand. The sun rises, that's leadership. The stock market moves, that's genius. A law passes through Congress despite him clearly, that's his influence. If a hurricane shifts direction, he'll call it strategic weather management. Walz laughs under his breath, the kind of laugh that comes when words no longer suffice. Kimmel puts it simply: this is what happens when a businessman discovers that democracy doesn't come with a refund policy.
The Trump administration will start firing workers instead of furloughing them, and you think they might target workers in blue states?
I do. I think it goes back to this question, Tom, that it appears like they're trying to do that. The disruption is there. The willingness of the Speaker of the House to blatantly, I have seen Fox News even correct this issue, that trying to tell the public we're in a massive misinformation campaign. The president himself tweeting out AI videos of fake news reports.
The man shakes hands like he's closing a licensing deal. Kimmel notes that diplomacy under Trump feels more like a reality TV dating show full of dramatic exits, sudden reconciliations, and everyone pretending they're still in control. Walz compares it to coaching Little League with a player who insists the scoreboard is fake simply because he doesn't like the numbers.
And why are you suing Donald Trump?
Because he's out of his ding-dong diddly mind. The guy, he's not mentally fit to be president.
But he pardoned you. He gave you a full pardon.
Ipso facto. Does that sound like a guy making rational decisions? I mean, I'm wearing horns and whacking it at the library.
Okay, but
Beneath the comedy, the real machinery keeps grinding. Agencies rush to turn tweets into directives, while staffers study his expressions like ancient runes. Kimmel imagines the morning meetings, a mix of applause, confusion, and PowerPoint slides explaining why yesterday's statement no longer counts. Walz, ever the pragmatist, wonders how long a government can survive on improvisation before running out of breath. What makes it surreal isn't the exaggeration, it's the sincerity. Trump believes every word, convinced conviction alone makes it true. Say it often enough, and reality will follow. Kimmel calls it wishful legislation. Walz calls it leadership by repetition. Somewhere in between, America just calls it Tuesday. The rallies never really ended. They just changed backdrops. Each appearance follows the same rhythm. Declaration, applause, grievance, applause again. Kimmel sees it less as politics and more as energy transfer. A national battery recharged by outrage. Walz says it's what happens when civic engagement turns into crowd participation. The chants may change, but the message never does. Loyalty over logic, enthusiasm over evidence. Every president leaves a legacy. This one seems determined to leave a slogan, "Make it great again," though no one can quite agree which again he means. Kimmel jokes that if nostalgia were policy, America would be running a surplus.
he's had it hard, guys. He's had it really hard. He claims he's not politicking for the Peace Prize, which must be why the White House posted this very subtle message calling him the Peace President. The Peace President is sending a platoon to invade a yoga studio in Portland right now. This is all you need to know about how we're being perceived around the world. Norway braces for Trump's reaction if he does not win the Nobel.
Walz notes the irony of a man promising greatness while describing a nation that supposedly lost it the moment he found cable news. Patriotism now packaged like merchandise. The economy becomes his trophy case. Numbers up, victory. Numbers down, conspiracy. Kimmel says it's like watching someone grade their own report card in crayon. Walz reminds that real strength means admitting flaws, but self-reflection was never part of the brand. This presidency treats stats like seasoning. Use when they flatter, skip when they don't. Climate change is a joke until the golf course floods. Kimmel wonders how a man who built towers can still be shocked by rising water. Walz calls it selective foresight, seeing crisis only when it hits the front nine. The energy plan runs on nostalgia and natural gas, both in endless supply. When experts speak, they're inconvenient. When numbers rise, they're trophies.
He negotiated the damn trade deal with them. If trade is so bad with Canada, he was the guy who signed the deal. It defies logic. But look, I think this is how he ran business. He stiffed contractors. He stiffed workers. He doesn't pay his bills. He declares bankruptcy. The one thing is, his claim that he's the business president, he is the worst possible business executive that I have ever witnessed.
Kimmel notes it's the only administration where science must pass a loyalty test. Walz, half amused, says it's like watching a doctor argue with his own thermometer. The pandemic didn't break the system. It exposed how fragile control really was. Through it all, the tweets kept coming, bursts of certainty in a world that refused to cooperate. Each post a proclamation, each correction an attack. Kimmel calls it governance by autocorrect. Walz says it's like running a country on bumper stickers. The megaphone never rests because silence feels too much like doubt. Most people would run out of exaggeration in a week. Trump never does. Every setback becomes a victory, every criticism a disguised compliment. He could trip over his own ego and call it strategy. Walz compares it to a magician sawing himself in half and blaming the audience for bad ratings. Even scandals have lost their shock. What once ended careers now barely earns a headline. Kimmel jokes that outrage fatigue may be the last bipartisan achievement. Walz adds, governance by chaos makes people stop paying attention, and that's the perfect setup for someone who survives on distraction. When everything's dramatic, nothing's accountable.
The Senate Judiciary Committee was at work today hearing testimony from Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Bondi refused to deny that border czar Tom Homan was seen accepting $50,000 in cash in a paper bag at a Cava restaurant. He hasn't even denied this either. How crazy is it? $50,000 in a bag. The FBI got it on tape. He's still running the border. He's still in charge of rounding up illegals. Hey, Tom, if you're looking for illegals, we found one living in your house.
Cabinet meetings feel like sitcom boardrooms. Everyone agrees, everyone applauds, and no one dares to leave. Loyalty is currency, and inflation is steep. Kimmel says it's like watching employees praise the chef while the kitchen burns. Walz adds that true leadership isn't about demanding praise, but earning it when no one's looking. Yet, in this administration, visibility is the only prize that counts. Foreign observers once called it unpredictable. Now they just call it American. Walz, calm as ever, notes that consistency used to be a strength. Now it's a weakness because it doesn't trend. The world keeps adjusting to the noise, waiting for silence that never comes. Beneath the humor lies a real weight. Policies still shape lives, rhetoric still divides neighbors, and confusion still costs time. Kimmel knows the joke lands only because the consequences are real. Walz understands satire can't fix things. It only exposes them. Together, they peel back the absurdity not to mock, but to remind people what normal once sounded like.
The government of Norway is scared he might punish them, that he might declare them an enemy for not giving him the Nobel Peace Prize. Give me that Peace Prize or I'll stick it up your Aurora Borealis. No president has ever been more committed to peace, and he's arresting all the rabble-rousers to prove it.
We have arrested dozens of individuals that are Antifa members or affiliated with them, and I want to thank our Attorney General for prosecuting them and making sure they never see the light of day again.
That's just the Secretary of Homeland Security suggesting we lock up American protesters for life.
Somewhere in all of it, the myth of self-made strength keeps echoing the belief that power equals virtue, that volume equals truth. Kimmel calls it the gospel of confidence without content. Walz calls it emotional economics. Invest enough belief and the stock price of ego never drops. But numbers don't lie forever. Eventually, even the market of admiration crashes as election cycles blur and the campaign never ends. Every press conference doubles as an ad, every appearance as proof of relevance. When exaggeration becomes normal, truth starts to sound radical. Yet the spectacle continues because it works. Chaos fills airtime, confusion sells headlines, and outrage keeps viewers hooked. It's governance as entertainment. Keep them watching, keep them reacting. Kimmel calls it the final act of reality television, where fame outpaces responsibility. Walz sighs, democracy was never meant to be binge-watched. The most striking part, he says, is how deeply Trump believes his own mythology. Every setback becomes strategy. Every failure recast as foresight. Kimmel compares it to an actor who's forgotten where the role ends and the person begins.
Comey faces up to 5 years in prison. Today he pleaded not guilty, and the prosecutor in the case is a Trump favorite, former Miss Colorado third runner-up Lindsay Halligan, who has no experience in prosecution at all. There she is. She was an insurance lawyer, but she's very good looking. Trump picks his lawyers like he's casting a reboot of Suits. They brought Lindsay in at the last minute because the first prosecutor, who himself had been appointed by Trump to the U.S. Attorney's Office 4 months ago, refused to take the case because of a lack of evidence, and also because if you prosecute someone for vindictive reasons, you could lose your license to practice. And in Lindsay Halligan's case, you could even lose your beauty.
Walz says that's what happens when performance replaces purpose. It's not deception, it's living inside the story. Maybe that's the secret. He's not pretending to lead a show. He truly believes the show is leadership. Every camera flash feels like authority, every headline like destiny. The applause may fade, but in his mind, the crowd never leaves. Kimmel calls it a feedback loop of self-confidence. They don't tear him down with insults, they dismantle him with perspective. Kimmel exposes the absurdity, Walz provides the context. Together, they show that the joke stopped being funny the moment it became normal. Their humor stings not because it's cruel, but because it's true, the kind of truth that laughs before it breaks. The closing note isn't anger, but exhaustion.
I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Look, I get it. You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
Kimmel reflects that history will remember this presidency not for what it built, but for how loudly it claimed to be unbreakable, while everything around it fractured. Walz nods, picturing future students studying this era as a lesson in confidence gone rogue. One day, a generation will read about tweets the way others once read telegrams, curious relics from a time when power mistook attention for respect. And when the laughter fades, the image lingers. A leader convinced that popularity is policy, surrounded by mirrors reflecting only himself. Kimmel doesn't need a punchline, and Walz doesn't need a lecture. The picture tells the story. The slogans, the spectacle, the certainty, the performance that never ended, even after the audience left. Maybe that's the final irony. The man who turned politics into primetime television can't see that the show ended long ago. The credits have rolled, the cameras are gone, and the audience has moved on. Yet he's still there, rehearsing lines no one asked for. The set is empty, the lights are dim, and the applause exists only in his head. He still gestures to a crowd that isn't there, still sells the next season of a show canceled by reality itself. The promises are reruns, the slogans just echoes, but he delivers them with the same conviction, certain the ratings are higher than ever. Kimmel and Walz simply watch, caught between humor and disbelief as the curtain refuses to fall. The most astonishing part isn't that he keeps acting, it's that, deep down, he truly believes the show is still on.